Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again. I am Kaylee Batesman, the Managing Director, Community and Partnerships at Seek and Code. And today we're discussing the truth about job hunting. What is the hardest part of job hunting isn't your CV, but being truly seen. I've got the wonderful Katy Murray, co-founder of Rewired, with me today to share the honest truth about navigating today's job market and why so many talented people are overlooked. Welcome, Katy. So lovely to have you on here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. This topic is something that our community talks about a lot. So it's going to be very topical with them. But we'd love to get started with a little bit about you, if that's okay, to set the scene.
Yeah, as you said, I'm co-founder of Rewired. We are a startup. We're just about to launch, actually. We're a job platform that helps candidates find jobs and helps organizations find the right people for their roles. So currently, candidates have an absolute nightmare, as probably a lot of your community are aware that they have to apply for hundreds of jobs and they never hear back and they don't know what they're doing wrong. And at the same time, organizations can't find the right people. They often mishire. They're having really long hiring processes with lots of stages. It's really like a painful process where no one's winning. So we've created a platform that kind of joins candidates and organizations, and it's a system that better identifies talent so that both can find what they need in the process. I am also very much a career changer, and I had like a 15-year career in retail head office before I transitioned into my own businesses. I've been this makes me sound like 100 years old, but I've been a founder for like 10 years now. And this is my fourth business actually. I sold my first business, and then I've had a couple of ventures since then as well. And yeah, we've been in the hiring tech industry for like 3 or 4 years now, and yeah, we're excited to get launched.
Right, I have so many questions from what you just said. First off, being a founder, that's not for the faint-hearted. Um, what happened there? How did you what happened? How did you start your own business? How did you go into that? What happened? Please tell me all about that and your experience.
Yes, of course. And I think partly, I've always wanted to have my own business, but I think you do get, I think it's hard to come out of the employment or being employed because you have that security. And so you kind of, I want to say you get sucked in, but it's not a small thing. It's like having that security of a paycheck. It's like, we need it, don't we? So it takes a lot, I think. It's brave to start your own business and to step away from that. And for me, it didn't really happen until I had my second child. And I know a lot of people in your community have kids. It's like the pressure builds, and suddenly the balance of like commuting, working the long hours, or even the paycheck, it's suddenly it doesn't all work. So I started to grow my businesses whilst I was working, and ease myself out of employment. And it hasn't been easy. It took a few years before I started to make it pay. And yeah, that working and running a business at the same time is it's not easy, or none of it's easy, is it? The job's not easy, the business isn't easy, but yeah, doing both, and young kids as well, it's definitely lots of juggling. But funny enough, I look at that version of me then, and I had so much energy when I started out compared to now. I sometimes think, who was that woman? But yeah, I mean, it's nothing, I love it. I think there's nothing quite like being a founder. Like, I just love the mix of things that we get to do, and dipping your toe in a bit of everything with the business. It's not just one thing. I think I always struggled with being sort of putting myself into a certain category. I kind of liked a bit of a lot of things. I like problem solving. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is the job for me, like startup founder. Suddenly it all makes sense. Because it is so multi-skilled, and it is so like, okay, how are we going to solve this? This has happened. Like, what do we need to do? So yeah, it just works for me.
Love that. It's something that we talk about a lot on here. Starting your own business is quite a challenge, and it really does make you as a person as well. It takes a certain person um, do you want to do that and yourself to go on to launch like four of them as well instead of thinking no, I've done one and I've dipped my toe in and I'm not going to do that again. That takes a certain type of person as well. So I never know what people are going to say on here, and we always just love to hear people's journeys, and that it doesn't have to be the traditional way into the tech industry or anything like that. That when people leave university, they think their career has to be kind of one way, very traditional. You have to know what you're going to do straight after university, for instance, and that is going to be your whole career. And it's so much better to hear when people have been moving around and trying things, and that it doesn't have to be set in stone. And circumstances change as well. People have families and they want to be a bit more flexible. And the more that we hear people that are doing that, the more it inspires other people to think, actually, I could go on and do that. But obviously very, very challenging as well. So we are going to chat about something that I know is super interesting for our community, because especially now with AI tools being brought into recruitment, as many of our community have been asking us about how to be seen, how to stand out. Like you said, you can be applying for hundreds and hundreds of roles and still not being seen. So we're going to cover off some of that today. So you say that being seen is one of the biggest challenges in job hunting. What's really broken in what's really broken in the traditional hiring process, and what are employers missing when they focus too heavily on CVs and career history?
Yeah, well, there's a lot there to unpack, to be honest. But we'll start with, part of it is AI coming in, and you've got AI used by the candidates. So candidates generating CVs that can look pretty good and look like really polished, and you get rid of all your like typos or grammar problems that might have been there. They sound amazing and chuck them in the applications. But they might not have really the right information. And actually, when it comes out the other end and the hiring manager's looking at them, everybody's got the same AI generated CVs that kind of sound okay. So it's
Yeah.
quite hard for them to identify, what makes someone stand out, what would make them good for the role. And then they're having to have really long hiring processes, doing assessments and multiple interviews and telephone interviews, just to try and understand who's the right person. But still, like 60% of businesses regularly mishire, so it's not really happening. Then you've got like AI used in the application process. So, for example, like the easy apply systems, which allows people to pretty much just apply with one click. So it gives them the kind of false sense of security that, oh, I've just applied to hundreds of jobs this morning. But actually, quite often those applications aren't really getting through. They're just kind of being junked. And when they do get through, they're kind of fairly low quality in terms of the information that's there. So they don't really work. Um, so yeah, it's like a mass of poor information that's being pumped into this system, and the employers are just trying to sort through it the best way they can, but it doesn't really work. So the poor candidates are like chucking out all this volume, all these applications, never hearing anything back, and thinking, well, I've failed, or I've been rejected, or I'm invisible, because that's what you'd assume. But actually, they're just not getting through the process. They're not being seen. So there's quite a lot going on there, and no one's really saying, actually, you need to do this. You need to change how you're applying. Some of the systems you're using aren't working, and it's actually just a functional thing. It's not about you personally. So what really needs to happen is they probably focus their applications a lot more, like do less, but make them really, really good quality, like really focus on getting the information relevant to the job they want to apply for. And don't apply for lots of jobs that are outside of their skill set, because the chances are you won't get the job, you don't have the right skills, but really focus on ones that are relevant to you, your experience, and what you want to do.
Yes, because you're always told as well, if you're applying for jobs, make sure that you tailor your CV and tailor the cover letter. And um, I'm curious now because a recruiter told me that recently about CVs being written by AI,
Mm.
which was your first point. And I'm curious to know, do recruiters just know that now when they land in their inbox and they go, "Yep, it's another one. That ChatGPT is just writing all of the same CVs." Like, is it that obvious that it's just hasn't been tailored at all, and that's not a good start?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's well known, and the conversations we have with a lot of people is, in any kind of space is AI is screening AI basically. Like AI is generating all this content, and it looks good, on paper, but actually there's no depth to it, and it doesn't really necessarily reveal much about the person. So it's like the kind of the experience-led, skills-led information that we've always used is just not working anymore. It's like we need this extra layer of information about people to really understand them, but the system doesn't provide that. So it's kind of like we're in this mess of poor information, poor quality information that we can't really move beyond with the current
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, especially if there is AI tools being used in the process as well, of the recruitment process. For instance, if you're a woman in tech and you've had a career break, or you've got gaps in your CV because you've left to have family or anything else, um, you're going to get disregarded in that process already. It's going to be set, unfortunately, for certain things that it's looking for. And for companies that are saying they want to increase the amount of women in tech that they have in their companies, that's not going to happen if that AI tool has been set to find certain people. It's just that some companies, hopefully, companies don't go backwards as a result of that, because they're just chucking out CVs that they really should have been reviewing with a set of human eyes, if they wanted to increase diversity, for instance.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, unfortunately, the traditional way of looking at experience is kind of the length of time you've done a specific job, that specific job, and then where you've worked. And so for a lot of us, especially women who, often have career breaks and have kids and all the rest of it, we are often the ones that have like kind of a different skill set and changing skills and changing experiences, and maybe we've not had the long length of time at organizations, and it kind of penalizes us, the
Yeah,
normal system. So I mean, both me and my co-founder, for example, I call myself a career shapeshifter. I've done a lot of different things, but because of that we've got really really rich experience, and we've got,
yeah,
we could offer a lot in any job role, but actually in a system we'd be penalized because I haven't got 10 years working in a marketing agency, for example, which is what the hiring system would prefer to see for me if I was to go for a loosely marketing based role, which is my biggest skill set. So it is really frustrating, and it's not preparing the world for where the world is going with AI, where we are going to have to adapt more and change more. And I think we're going to have a wider range of skills just to do any job. I think the days of being, well, I want to say accountant, but probably accountant will stay fairly the same. But having a specific job role where you only do one set of skills, I think that's gone. I think it's going to change rapidly, and we'll be multi-skilled in all roles.
yes, definitely. There are some companies out there as well. A lot of them are partners of ours that are actively seeking women in tech, and also understanding that the recruitment process is not straightforward. You will get a lot of, for instance, our community members who might not tick all of the boxes, but
Yeah,
that employer can train them up in other areas. Those employees are going to be more loyal as well. Then they're not going to job hop. So you have
yeah.
to invest in people as well, if you want to bring about change in your hiring process. But some companies do go with the easy route and just think, why aren't we bringing about change? Why isn't anything happening?
Yeah, I mean, because it's at a system level. And it's not even just about the hiring tech. It's like, the basic stuff that sits beneath that, is the CVs and the information on the CVs. And although we kind of know that it doesn't work, like there's not many people that are changing it. And it's,
Mm.
as soon as you start to talk about changing it, people are going, but it's always been like that.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, and it's not working.
we need to change that. Yeah, yeah.
And I think before when there were less people applying for job roles and you didn't have so much online application and it did work because it was a good way of kind of getting an idea of that person if they were going to be a match for the job. Of course, it makes sense, but now it's so much more complicated. And I think people's human skills, their kind of adaptability, their ability to get on with each other, communication, that kind of thing is going to be more and more important. And
Mm.
that's kind of harder to show on a CV.
Yes, definitely. Because I wanted to ask you as well, as the co-founder of Rewired, what have you learned about capability? That most people they tend to underestimate themselves. We've actually found that a lot with women in tech, who are underestimating their skills and whether or not they think they should apply for roles. Are there patterns that you see in talented individuals who struggle to recognize their own value?
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of it is like that modesty, that struggle to recognize, but part of it's also overwhelm because
Mm.
we're like living data centers of our own information. And sometimes it's hard to recall all the things we've done. And if we can, we tend to think in history what we did as opposed to what was the impact, what change did I make in that role or that situation? What impact did that have on the organization or the people? And then was that impact, was it, a sales or money impact, or did I save money, or did I change that person? These are the things that people need to think about, and it's quite a lot to kind of to consider and kind of draw out of ourselves. So it isn't easy, and it really is kind of trying to find ways of drawing that information out. And sometimes, because, like we said, the way hiring is done tends to be that very linear historical way, we tend to think, oh, well, have I ever been a manager of people or whatever? But actually, sometimes you can not have been that, but have some of the skills that you need to do that role. So, for example, if you've never been a people manager and the job you're applying to is like an early management position and you've not got that yet, you might have managed a project where you were several months managing a team and you had goals and you reached those goals and you had an outcome. So if you can build some of that into the story you tell by your CV or however you're applying for your job, there's ways to make up the experience. And when I say make up, I don't mean literally make it up. I don't recommend that, but you probably have got more experience than you can recall when you first think about it. So always the way I would recommend is to look at the job description, see what they're actually asking for, because ultimately that's what they want, depending on how good they are at doing their job description, and try and work out, go backwards, try and work out if you've got those skills, thinking a little bit beneath the surface and not the obvious, and then how you can really demonstrate them. So, what was the impact you had in that situation? Can you quantify it? Those sort of things, because we've always done a lot more than we initially think, and we have to just start thinking out of the box of it was exactly the same.
Yeah, yes, I agree because if people are going to be using AI tools to write their CVs anyway, you might as well ask it to help you to tell your story or
Yeah,
at least to give you some pointers because most people don't know that they have a really good story to tell.
yeah,
And on here, we love to chat with people that have really weird roots into tech and how they did it and how they told their story. Because I remember one lady, she said to me, she was a professional ballerina and she said, when I moved into tech, telling my story, I had to find a way to say that even though I've been a professional dancer for all this time, those transferable skills of discipline and hard work. And she said, when I did find myself in a position where I landed a great role, it was just being able to articulate all of the good things that I've done, even though they weren't actually connected to being in tech. And sometimes people struggle to do that. And if you're going to ask a chat GPT or another tool to help you, but ask it to help you. How do I tell my story? How do I stand out?
Yeah, that's great advice. And I do think this is where these, the language models are great, just filling in the gaps and kind of and shaping something out. And, I think that they often see more than we do. And I think that's why for women particularly like having conversations with them
Yeah,
because they get that feedback that we often find it hard to articulate and we don't even get it from our friends and family sometimes.
yeah.
And it's that kind of, yeah, not that emotional detachment, that just the kind of pure facts. So it's really good for that. Even if it's not quite right, you want to use it as it is, just to kind of start to flesh out and then
Yeah.
ask it some questions, see if you can like refine it down a little bit.
Yeah, but you're right just as a starter, because again, you don't want to fall back into that trap of those CVs that you can tell have been written
Yes.
by AI,
Yeah.
and you've just gone back into that pool of
Yeah.
people again. Um, so you talk about sharing opportunity instead of guarding it. Um, how has giving back directly impacted your own career journey?
Good question. I think that there's a kind of we have this underlying belief that there's not enough to go around, and I think it's quite hard to move out of that. And we often think that if I if I have something or if somebody else has something, then I can't have it. It's like me or them. But it isn't the case. I mean, humans, we're completely creative and generative. So I really believe that if we could, like, for example, if I want to do a project about women in tech, or I've got this idea for a blog or a podcast or whatever, I'd love to talk to you about it. And I probably have some ideas about that, and you will have your own ideas, and we'll come together, and those ideas will create new ideas. It's not limited. So
Yeah.
the more we kind of break free from that kind of limiting belief that there won't be enough to go around, the more we can create new things. And just the more I've opened myself up to community, whether that's on LinkedIn or I've run communities myself in the past, the more opportunity has come to me. The more you step out of that guarded mindset, the more you're vulnerable, the more you ask for things. Um, yeah, the more comes back to you really. And being vulnerable as well, I think you make it okay for the next person to go, oh yeah, actually, yeah, like you're right, that is hard, and I struggle with that. And actually, I can see because you're struggling with that it's okay. So yeah, I mean, it's endlessly generative in terms of being honest and open and not limiting yourself.
I think as well that people love to help as well is the other
Yeah.
thing. Something that I hadn't realized early on in my career is that it's okay to ask questions, but people love being asked questions. They want
Yes.
to step in and help because you feel like you're annoying people by
Yeah.
asking. And actually, if you put that question out to a community, people are like, "Oh, I'd love to help." We have a mentoring program for that reason because you get told, go and find yourself a mentor, and you ask loads of people on LinkedIn and you don't hear back from them or you get rejected and you think, oh, actually, maybe this isn't the best place to find someone. So we started a directory to put all of those people that wanted to be a mentor into the directory to connect them with the people that were looking for one. And so many people went into that directory because people want to help and give back. They just need a place to do it, and community is a great place to be able to do that and find your people. And I completely agree about sharing your struggles, especially as a founder, as a business. Places like Instagram and LinkedIn, when you see the stories and they're like, I wanted to start this business and look at me 1 year later, and they haven't shared what happened in that year. You want to see how did you struggle inside that year, because it's not just, 1 year ago I had this tiny thoughts and everything's been fantastic since. Like, we want to see what was your struggle, because that's the thing that actually people will connect with. And the more you share that, the more it helps other people and helps you in your journey as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's that validation and that kind of yeah, you've made it safe for me to be like struggling a bit with that. But also it's like, well, oh yeah, you struggle with that. Maybe you know how to help me get through that as well. So yeah, it's just being honest and open is, just such a better way to be. And I hear you, like I'm an accredited coach and I've had a coaching business for a while, and just the level of polish that's put out there in the coaching industry just is so frustrating. I think it's really changing now. Like people are becoming a lot more real. But yeah, it's not like how life is, and it's that authenticity is where you make connection with people and you
Yeah,
open the door.
yeah, exactly. That polished version. It helps, but it doesn't, we want to know. We want to know
Yeah.
what's and all, what happened, how can we help each other? Um, and and we've already touched upon this a little bit, but I wanted to hear how women can better articulate their potential, and actively build supportive networks around them, because that's also a struggle as well of finding a community and building that community to help you to tell your story. You mentioned about running a community and finding your community. How did you do that? How can our listeners build more supportive networks?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I seem to be centered around communities, whether I've tried to or not in most of my career. My first business was a business community. That's a business that I sold. Yeah, it's like it's wanting. I hate that phrase. Your vibe attracts your tribe. It's really cheesy, but it is a little bit like that. It's finding your people that are kind of in the same space, going through similar things as you, that as we kind of were just talking about, it kind of validates your experience, but also some people in there that will stretch as well, that she's done that, so I can see that it's possible for me, and you just talk the same language. And certainly, like one thing that I've really found valuable as a founder is starting to like join more founder communities. And it's like, oh yeah, these are my people. And it's exciting when it happens. But equally, I've had the experience of going to networking and joining groups where I haven't really felt like I belonged. And yeah, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable and you kind of question yourself. And I think that is key, is like finding the right ones for you that really kind of connect with where you are and where you want to go. And that is like a game changer. It really, helps. It's that context that we need to kind of see what's out there, what's possible, where you grow, like to have those opportunities, like we were saying, like opening yourself up to what more might be out there.
Yes, and being able to articulate your capabilities as well. And like you said, finding those communities that can help you with that.
Yeah.
Because I love the fact that you said not all communities feel comfortable either, which is very true. It's finding the right
Yeah.
one to help you with what you're building, and what you're doing, because you want to hear, but you almost want to hear the mistakes as well. Like, what are the mistakes that people have made, so you can try and avoid those mistakes, as well when building out, your company, your story, but then finding a way to articulate your capabilities and what you're good at, to shine out, in a sea of other people that might be doing something very similar.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing as well. Sometimes it's like seeing what you're not to help you know what you
Yeah.
are. And it's like, thinking, because I'm a brand person, like you call it positioning. So it's like, where do you sit in the market? What do you do? How are you good at that? How do you do it differently? And, who do you work with? It's like thinking about it like that is a really quick and easy way to kind of figure out what it is you do as a kind of overall header. And once you have that framing, it's much easier to kind of angle everything else. And I think, when when you're in the right community, it just feels different.
Yeah,
It's not about the community being right and wrong. I mean, some places are, there are toxic communities and
yeah.
networking groups, but it's, there's not just that. There's sometimes it's just people in a different stage and a different place, and it does just generally feel different. So, for example, I've been in solopreneur type communities before, and now that I'm doing the startup journey, I'm in founder communities. And whilst they're both businesses, people running businesses, they feel completely different. And founder feels much more like where I'm at. Yeah, it just makes such a difference having the right people around you. And you think you might know a lot about your particular area, but then having people in your community that have on a similar trajectory but with different experience is just like makes all the difference, because like we were talking at the beginning, it's opening yourself up to those possibilities and potentials that you couldn't see on your own before, and then validating the bits that feel messy or uncomfortable that you're like, oh, but I haven't quite got this right. There'll be people that have been through that or worse or whatever that, can help you feel better. So yeah, it makes a difference.
Yes, definitely. Some of our engineers and developers have told us as well that, especially working in tech, you can have very high days and very high highs and very low lows. And sometimes finding that community to help you with that, to say, like, it's okay that something might have gone wrong at work, or like, let's talk about that, or you found yourself on the wrong team and you want to move, and how do I do that or retrain into something new? Hearing that other people also experiencing what you're experiencing definitely can make such a difference to how you show up at work as well, and want to move forward, and go on and apply to somewhere else as well. I wanted to ask you, if someone listening feels invisible or stuck in their job search right now, what's the first practical step they can take to regain momentum? And what would you tell them to do this week?
Yeah, I mean, always I would advise going to some action, because what tends to happen is we feel invisible. We can internalize everything and get stuck in how we're feeling. And actually, what people often do is like, right, I'm going to send out 100 easy apply applications, and surely within that 100, I'll get one of those jobs. But it doesn't work like that, because as we were talking about at the beginning, those applications are pretty rubbish, and maybe you'll be lucky, but probably not. So what I do is cut the volume, think about what sort of jobs you really want to apply for and where, and think about some practical steps you can take today, maybe three different things just today. The first one I would suggest, like, make sure your LinkedIn profile is really up to date and it really positions you for the job you want. It makes it clear that you've got the skills and experience, even in your header, to do that job. And think about the job that you want, not just the job you're doing or you've done before. And then reach out to some people in your network, or in your like first, I think it's second degree contacts. I can't quite remember your contacts.
Yeah.
Maybe some people that are working in the companies that you're interested in, or might have the sort of job roles that you're interested in, and just like be friendly and helpful and see if they've got any tips about, maybe they know if there's any jobs available, or they might be able to give you some advice about the kind of people they look for. Just kind of like gently probing questions, as opposed to like pushy, have you got a job? But just gentle, friendly networking questions, and see what you can draw out. Because often, like, the people in organizations are really, really busy as well, and they're dealing with all these applications. So actually, if there's people within their networks that are good and come through recommended circles, they would much rather choose those people. So trying to do some quiet networking and see what you can kind of shake out is a really, really good place to start. And then just probably, yeah, a few like targeted job applications. Look at, as I said before, look at the job description, really make sure your CV matches what's on there. Have those tangible examples of how you've demonstrated those skills, those specific requirements it's looking for. think about your experience on a deeper level, like just because you may not have done that specific job role or skill before in your last job or the one before that, there might be something else in your hobbies or your a project you ran or something else you've done you can bring in to try and bulk up your experience to kind of make you match that job role better. So there's always a few things you can do quite quickly. And I think taking it back to action and doing something really tangible will make you feel better really, really quickly and probably get some results at least.
Yes, I think that is the making you feel better really
Yeah,
quickly. It can be quite disheartening when you go start searching for a job, and they say it's searching for a job is a full-time job
yeah.
anyway, and it can really drag you down. A phrase I heard on this podcast a little while ago, and something that I think I will take with me everywhere I go, is a brag book. And somebody said to me, every time you do something like a project or something that you're proud of, put it in your brag book, because that helps you when you do go on to tell your story for your next role, because you do forget a lot of the things that you have done and been a part of. So it is hard at that point to think, actually, what did I do? Was I managing a team? How did we cope with that project when it went wrong? Did we all throw each other under the bus, or did we move forward as a team? Like, how did we cope with that challenge? But the brag book of remembering to write down your achievements, and then that helps you put together your story for when you are applying next time. And that's something that I think a lot of us just forget to do. We just forget to note our achievements. And it's really difficult then when you're applying and you just turn to AI and it spits you out a CV.
I love that. I love that. I think as well, it's very British
Yes,
to to not brag. It's like we want to be humble. But
that's it.
you need, I mean, there's making claims and then there's being able to really sell yourself in a very practical, tangible and clear way. So I think, yeah, starting to rate those lists is really, really useful. And, we all say, oh, keep your CV updated every few months, go on there. And it is good to do, but we don't always do it. So yeah, I think I love that, having a brag book and also like, giving yourself a pat on the back for those things because we don't
Yeah,
do that enough either.
exactly. Okay, and you're right. That is very British. Us not even doing that. Even if you keep that brag book in secret until you're ready to apply for something, it's very British not to shout about
Yeah.
our achievements as well, which is not a helpful exercise when you need to then go on and talk about all the great things you did when you're applying for a role. Um, not very helpful. Um, I could go on talking to you about this all afternoon. It is something that our community are so interested in. How do I stand out? How do I make myself seen? I love the fact that you also just mentioned about keeping up that energy as well, and lifting you. It's remaining positive whilst you're searching for a job as well, because it can be very tough. And finding people like yourselves and your platform on how to be able to connect with employers and to stand out more is really, really important. But Katy, thank you so much for sharing what you're doing. It's absolutely wonderful. It aligns so much with our community. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thank you. For everybody listening, as always, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time.